If you're interested in setting up a virtual private server to auto trade on MetaTrader 24/7 while you're asleep, while you're at work, while you're sitting by the pool drinking Mai Tais, then this one's for you. In today's video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to set up a VPS or virtual private server through Amazon Web Services. Specifically, we're going to set up a Windows server through Amazon Lightsail, which is an extremely cheap solution for hosting private servers. Once we have the server up and running, we'll install MetaTrader and then install the Pine Connector Expert Advisor and execute a test trade to make sure everything's working. After that, as Shakespeare once said, the world is your oyster. If you already have a profitable strategy set up and working through Pine Connector, you can set up your TradingView alerts and let the virtual server handle everything. Or if you already have a different Expert Advisor script that auto trades, you can simply install that onto the virtual server and it'll work just the same. So today's lesson isn't just specific to Pine Connector, but that is what we'll be focusing on today. First of all, what is Lightsail? In my previous auto trading series on AutoView, I showed you guys how to set up a private server using a different Amazon service. In that lesson, we set up an EC2 instance, which was much more complicated than today's lesson. The reason we did it differently for AutoView is that AutoView is a Chrome browser plugin that doesn't require much computing power, so we could get away with using the free plan on Amazon Web Services. MetaTrader is a little bit more resource intensive than a web browser, so I thought Lightsail would be a better solution. Plus, I thought it might be interesting to explore an alternative to the EC2 service in today's video. If you want to try the EC2 approach, which allows you 12 months of free access to the service, you can check out my AutoView version of today's lesson in the video description. All the steps are the same, except instead of installing Chrome, you'd obviously install MetaTrader. Anyway, the main difference with Lightsail compared to EC2 is that on EC2 you kind of pay as you go, meaning that you only get charged for what resources you use. This is great if you know what you're doing, but if you're not experienced with server management, it could also be a trap, as you might accidentally use more resources than you expected to, and you might end up with a bill that was higher than you were willing to pay. With Lightsail, however, we pay a flat $8 per month fee. With that price, we get a cheap virtual server that can handle everything we need in regards to running MetaTrader scripts 24/7. We also get our first 3 months free, which means you can play around with this and see if you want to go down this route without paying a cent before you need to commit to it. The setup for Lightsail is also much simpler compared to the EC2 approach. Anyway, don't worry if you didn't understand any of what I just said. Today, I'm going to walk you through everything step by step. Let's get into the lesson. Now, first of all, if you already have an Amazon Web Services account from either my AutoView series or you've just played around with this stuff before, you can find the Lightsail control panel or whatever it's called by clicking on all services here and then click on the Lightsail link. Or you can just type Lightsail AWS into Google. Okay, so here we are on the official Amazon Web Services Lightsail guide. I'm not going to go over how to create your Amazon account because I did that in the AutoView series. If you want to go back and watch that video, I go into more detail about that side of things, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So the first thing we need to do is create an Amazon Lightsail account. So I already have an account, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move on to step 2, which is create a Windows Server 2016 instance in Amazon Lightsail. So to do that, I'm going to open this link in a new tab. I'm going to click Let's Get Started. Now you can set your instance location to any country you want. I'm going to set it to where my Oanda server is located. So first of all, you can right click on your account, at least with Oanda, and select Register a Virtual Server. And you could set this up here directly through MetaTrader. But the price here is nearly double what we can get on Amazon Lightsail. So I'm not going to show you how to set this up through MetaTrader today. We're going to do it ourselves through Amazon Lightsail. And besides, I'm pretty sure the MetaTrader hosting service doesn't allow DLL imports for Expert Advisors, which Pine Connector requires. So we can't use that for Pine Connector anyway. But I might be mistaken about that. Let me know in the comments section if I am. One thing worth noting here is that the server here is in New York and has a 2 millisecond ping to the Oanda server. So I'm going to change my Lightsail server location to try and get a better latency. So here I am on the Lightsail create an instance page. I'm going to click change AWS region and I'm going to select one of these American servers. I'm not good with American geography, so I have no idea which one of these locations is closer to New York. I'll just quickly Google that and then select the right one. Now, it's a shame they don't have a New York server here, but I'm going to select the Virginia one since that is the closest one, about 400 miles from New York. That will have to do for now. Next up, we need to pick our instance image and platform. So if you're experienced with Unix or Linux, or you're feeling adventurous, you can select this option and it is significantly cheaper. It works out to be around $3.50 per month for the lowest tier option. I'm going to go with Windows because I'm more familiar with Windows and I'm assuming most traders are. So I'm going to click Windows here. We're going to set OS only and I'm going to leave it on Windows Server 2019. Then as we scroll down here, we have add launch script. I'm not going to do that. We don't need to do that today. All we need to do is select our settings here for our instance. I believe we'll be okay just leaving this on the default settings. We don't need a lot of hard drive space. We don't really need a lot of CPU or RAM. And I'm assuming this transfer is our network bandwidth. 1 terabyte will be far more than we'll ever need for what we're doing here with MetaTrader. So I'm going to leave this on the minimum system specs and move on to the final steps here, which is we need to name our instance. I'm going to call mine MetaTrader server, and you can't have spaces, so I'm just going to leave that as one word. Next up, you can apply tags to your instance. I'm not going to bother with that. I think it's optional, and we're only setting up one instance, so we don't need to mess with that. Let's just click the giant create instance button and see what happens. And here we go. The instance is booting up, and in a moment we should be able to connect remotely and start setting up MetaTrader. Okay, our MetaTrader server instance is up and running. We can now connect to it and start setting up the server. To do that, we just click on the server. Now, for some reason, I cannot use the browser-based remote desktop client. So I'm just going to connect manually using my Windows RDP client with just the information that we have here. So I'm going to open up my RDP client now. Here we go. Now I just need to put in this IP address and then click connect. Now, if your RDP client pops up like this with your actual current Windows login information, just click down here on use a different account, and then we need to input this username and this password in order to connect to this server. So I'm going to do that now. Administrator. I'm going to click on show default password, copy this password, and then paste it into here and click remember me. Then I'm going to click OK. Hopefully we can log in. You can ignore this warning since this is a server we've set up. So just click don't ask me again for connections to this computer and click yes. And we're in. So just give it a moment to boot up and configure the first startup. The first startup takes a little bit longer than any subsequent connections we make. All right, so here we are. We're into our server. Everything's working fine. Let's get this baby set up. I'm going to open up Internet Explorer here.
Hours later.
Close that, close that, close that, close that, close that. In fact, you know what? Screw this. I'm not using Internet Explorer anymore. It is too frustrating and it's going to be too difficult to install Chrome or anything. Let's just download the MetaTrader installation file on our home computer and copy it over to this remote server. I think that will be a lot quicker than dealing with this curse upon humanity, which is Internet Explorer. I'm going to navigate to the Oanda login page, log in, and then I'm going to download MetaTrader. Okay, so here is my Oanda MetaTrader 4 setup file. I'm going to right click on this and click copy, and then open up my RDP client. And I'm just going to paste this onto my desktop. And now this file will copy over to our virtual server. It may take a little while. It does need to upload this to the internet in order to copy it over. So depending on your internet connection, it could take a minute. And now here we go. All I need to do is install MetaTrader. There we go. It is installed. Click finish. And now I can double click on this shortcut to MetaTrader. And it should open up. Here we go. It's going to be a little bit slow because this computer is pretty crappy. So here's my server. My live account is set up to live number 4. And as you can see, we have an 8 millisecond latency to that server. On my home computer, it's around 300 milliseconds. So this is definitely a faster connection to the Oanda servers, which helps when automating systems. The less latency we have when we're placing our orders, because remember, we're already dealing with the latency from TradingView alerts being sent to Pine Connector, and then Pine Connector needs to relay that info to MetaTrader, and then MetaTrader needs to send that to Oanda. So the less latency we have, the better. But anyway, I'm going to click Next, and I'm going to log into an existing trade account. Click Finish, and there we go, we're in. Here's my account balance. I've only got a few $100s in here for testing purposes. But everything is working perfectly. All we need to do now is install the Pine Connector Expert Advisor and get that set up properly. So for that, I'm going to go back to my home computer and download the file off the Pine Connector website so that we don't have to deal with Internet Explorer. So here I am on the Pine Connector website. Remember to download the right Expert Advisor for your platform. I'm on MetaTrader 4, so I need this file. I'm just going to save it to my downloads folder and then copy and paste that over to the remote server. So here's my file. Right click, copy. Back onto our virtual server, we come up to File, click Open Data folder, open the MQL4 folder, open the Experts folder, and paste our Pine Connector script into here. There we go. Now we can either close MetaTrader and reopen it, or you can right click on Expert Advisors and click Refresh. Now if we open up the folder, Pine Connector should be in here. Now all we need to do is attach this script to a chart, any chart, and set up the Pine Connector settings and our credentials for using Pine Connector, and we're done. I'm going to close these charts here and just leave $dollar open. I'm going to maximize that. And remember, we need to go View and then Symbols, or press Control U. And depending on which markets you want to trade, you may need to activate them here so that Pine Connector can actually send trade commands to those markets. You can see all these markets are grayed out. We need to find the markets we want to trade. So in this case, I'm just going to activate $dollar. So here we are on Euro USD. I'm going to double click on that, close this window, and then I'll bring this out a little bit. I'm going to right click on $-F and click chart window. And then I'm going to close this other $dollar market. So before we attach Pine Connector to the chart, we need to come up to Tools and click Options. Make sure that you have selected under Expert Advisors, Allow Automated Trading, Allow DLL Imports. Those are the only two settings we need turned on in order for Pine Connector to work. So I'm going to click OK there. Then I'm going to click on the Pine Connector script or Expert Advisor, right click it, click Attach to a chart. And now we need to set up our settings, how we need them to be, and input our license ID. So for me, I like to set my target type to take profit and stop loss based on price. I'll leave this as specified volume, and I'll leave this as pips from current market. I'm also going to change my EA and license details to display only the license expiry date. You don't need to do this. I'm only doing it because I'm putting this video on YouTube, and it just makes editing a little easier because I don't need to blur out my license ID. So now I'm going to paste my license ID in here and click OK, and everything should work just fine. There we go. We've got a little smiley face in the top right. It shows my expiry date, which is next year, and we have successfully connected to Pine Connector's server. So now we're almost done. Let's send a test alert on my home computer to see if our connection is working. Okay, so here I am on $. I'm just going to right click here and click Add Alert. I'm going to set my condition to greater than 0 to guarantee that this alert fires as soon as possible. We don't need any of this turned on. All we need is our webhook inputted. And now we can write out a test command. So first I need to paste in my license ID, then a comma, and then the direction of our order. Since today is a little bearish, I'll just go with sell, and then another comma. And then we need to specify the market we're trading. So for me, that's Euro USD-F, and then another comma. And then we need to specify our risk, take profit, and stop loss. So I'm going to set my stop loss to, let's just make it 1.19. I'm going to set my take profit to, let's just say 1.18, and my risk to 0.01, which is the smallest position size I can have through Oanda, through MetaTrader at least. And this should be all we need in order to test an alert. So let's click Create and see what happens. Okay, so the alert just fired. Let's go over to MetaTrader and see if a trade has been opened on $. Here Here we go. Everything worked just fine. We have a 0.01 position going short on euro dollar with our stop loss at 119, take profit at 118. Perfect. But before you close out of your server, make sure to come and delete any symbols out of your watch list that you are not trading through Pine Connector. Because we're on such a cheap plan, we want to keep the CPU utilization as low as humanly possible. And you can see that by clicking on this little search icon down here and type in resource, short for resource monitor, and then click on this app here. And now this app will tell you how much of your CPU you are using. By deleting any market that we're not trading out of our watch list, that means that MetaTrader just has a little bit less work to do because it doesn't need to update all of these quotes. You only need to leave the markets you're actually going to trade active on this list. So I'm going to click on US yen and hit delete, 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 delete. And since I'm only testing euro dollar through MetaTrader at the moment, I have a script running on euro dollar on TradingView. I only need euro dollar active, so I'm going to leave euro dollar active. If you are trading other markets, you will need to include them here, but any markets you are not trading, get rid of them. And then finally, last but not least, it's a good idea to minimize MetaTrader and minimize the console or command prompt before you exit out of your server. I don't know if that makes a difference, but I like to think it does. That way the application doesn't need to run anything visual. It's just running in the background, minimized down to our taskbar. That's pretty much it. We now have a virtual server running MetaTrader connected to Pine Connector, and now this server should run 24/7 without you needing to do anything. You might need to check on it occasionally just in case MetaTrader crashed or there was a Windows update that restarted the computer or something like that. There are a couple of things we can do to mitigate that downtime issue by making MetaTrader run on the system startup. We can also create a batch file that will run constantly and check every few seconds if MetaTrader is open, and if it's not open, it will open it for us. I did that with my auto view lesson, and while I'm at it, while we're here, I might as well show you how to do that for MetaTrader as well. But if you're not interested in that, you could end the lesson here and just make sure to check on your server periodically to make sure everything's running fine. So I'm going to close MetaTrader for a moment. I'm going to come down here and just type run, and then I want to click on this app here. And now in here, we just need to type shell :startup and hit enter. And that opens up the startup folder here. I'm going to create a batch file in here that's going to constantly check if MetaTrader is open. And it's basically just a monitor that will start up when the server starts up and just constantly make sure that our platform is running, so that if anything goes wrong and MetaTrader crashes or the server restarts for any reason whatsoever, we can be certain that MetaTrader will reopen itself. So I've already created this batch file for my auto view version of this auto trading series. So I'm going to copy and paste that file into here. So I'm just going to right click here and click new, and then click text document. It doesn't matter what you name this, just open it up. Then I'm going to copy this text into here. Now you don't need to understand what's going on here. All we need to do is replace Chrome with the MetaTrader process name. So to change this from Chrome to MetaTrader, all we need to do is right click on the MetaTrader shortcut, click properties, and we want to see what the actual exe file is called here. In this case, it's called terminal. And don't worry, there'll be a link in the video description to this text file. You can just copy and paste into your notepad and you don't need to write any of this. But I need to change this to say terminal. And then I need to get rid of this line of text here. So now I need to write out 2 quotation marks and then a space. And then I need to copy this target string. I can click OK now and paste that in there. And I'll change this to say starting MT4. Now this string will change depending on your broker and which version of MetaTrader you're using. So you will need to replace this string with whatever your actual MetaTrader target file is in the shortcut. The easiest way to get this is to just right click on the desktop shortcut and copy the target string. So now let's save this batch file. So I need to go file, save as, and then we want to click on the save as type, change this to all files, rename this to monitor.bat, click save, and we're done. I can close this text file. We can delete this blank text document. And now if I double click on monitor, the script should check and realize MetaTrader is not open, as it says there, Danger Will Robinson, starting MT4, and there we go. So now if I was to close MetaTrader or MetaTrader crashed or the system rebooted, we are guaranteed to every minute check if it's not running, and if it's not running, it will be started up. So in a few seconds, the script will check and realize that MetaTrader is not open, and it will boot it back up. There we go. Perfect. Now that we're all set up, you can click on this close button whenever you're ready, and MetaTrader will stay open on this remote server, and you don't need to do anything other than check on it occasionally to make sure that it is still running. One thing I should really mention before we finish today's video is that depending on which version of MetaTrader you're using and what you're using it to do, for example, if you're trading a lot of markets with Pine Connector or a lot of expert advisor scripts and accessing a lot of market data regularly, this plan that we're on may not be enough. This one virtual CPU with 500 megs of RAM may not be enough to sustainably run your operation. You can check how your instance is using its resources by clicking on this metrics tab under the Amazon Light Sale account page. If I click on this and we scroll down, you can see here, this is my average CPU utilization per 5-minute time frame. I'm not going to go into explaining what burstable zones are and burst capacity, because that's kind of outside the scope of today's video. And to be perfectly honest, I don't fully understand it myself. It's a very convoluted system, if you ask me. But I'm not a network engineer, I'm a trader, and I only know the bare minimum to get this stuff operating, to be honest with you. But what you need to look out for is if this orange line is consistently above this green line that you see here, if this orange line starts spiking up here, that means that your instance is using more CPU power than your current plan can sustain in the long term. So long as your CPU usage is operating above this green line, this line down here will continue to decline until it hits 0. I'm not sure what happens when it hits 0% of remaining CPU burst capacity. I'm guessing your instance just stops running, which is obviously something you want to avoid if you have automated scripts running. So basically, as you can see here, I've had my instance running for about a few days now, 3 or 4 days, starting around here. And as you can see, there were times where it was consistently operating above this green line. Now, my configuration of MetaTrader is extremely simple. I only have Pine Connector connected, and I've only got one market data feed linked up to it. So I might be able to get away with this really cheap plan. But if your configuration of MetaTrader is using a lot of CPU power, you might need to upgrade to the $12 a month plan instead of the $8 a month. The easiest way to do that, if you've already configured your server for the $8 plan and you notice that this orange line is constantly far above this green line, then if you come up to snapshots, click on that, and then if you stop your instance, so if you click on this stop button, that will stop your instance. It'll basically turn off your virtual server. And now if you come down here, name your server to something else like MetaTrader Server 2, for example, and then click on the create button. That will create a snapshot or a copy of your current instance configuration. So everything we just did in today's video will be saved, and you can create a new instance on a different plan with exactly the same setup that we have already configured. So you can see down here, here's a snapshot I created to test the $12 plan. All I have to do is click on this little drop down box, this whatever you call this, hamburger icon or whatever it's called, and then click create new instance. And then you can set this new instance up as if it was a fresh instance. So you can choose your location and you can choose a new instance plan. So if you're just using Pine Connector, but your MetaTrader platform seems to be consuming a lot of CPU resources, you might want to upgrade to the $12 plan. And if you're running a bunch of expert advisors or particularly complex scripts and you're using significantly more CPU power, you might need to go for the $20 plan. I don't think you'll need to exceed the $20 plan to run MetaTrader, no matter how complicated your scripts are, but that's just something to keep in mind. So if I click on that and scroll down, we can name our instance. So I'm going to call mine MetaTrader Server 20 for $20 a month. And then I'm going to click create instance. And now Amazon Light Sale is going to boot up a new copy of my original instance under the new plan with extra CPU power and extra RAM. So if you need to upgrade your instance because it is consuming too much of your lower plan's resources, this is the easiest and quickest way to do it. Once this instance is up and running, like this one is, you'll be able to connect to it the same way we did to our original server, and the password will be the same for this server as well as your original server, so keep that in mind. You'll connect to this new IP address with the same password as your original instance, so make sure to save that password somewhere safe if you do need to copy your instance, because once you've copied it, you are going to need to delete the old instance, otherwise you'll get charged for it even though you're not using it. Now, I don't need this $20 a month plan, so I'm just going to delete this now. Click yes, delete, and I'm going to restart my original instance. Alright, so that'll do it for today's lesson. I hope you found this interesting and most importantly helpful. Now keep in mind what we've done today applies to any expert advisor. So if you're using any other expert advisor other than PineConnector to auto trade through MetaTrader, you can use the same steps we did today to set up Amazon Web Services to auto trade 24/7 on a remote server so that you don't need to leave your home computer running at all times. So I'll wrap it up there. Thanks for watching. Take care. Good luck out there. And I'll speak with you soon. Goodbye.